Hello everyone and welcome again to Whisky Wednesday. Today we are talking about Japanese whiskey, which is something we've not done for a while, and sadly this product is now discontinued or is in the process of being discontinued, so I'm going to tell you about it and why you should all go out and buy some. This is the Nikka Pure Malt White Label. Now there are three of them. There's the white label, the red label and the black label. I believe the red label is just on that top shelf over there. This one, however, is my favourite of the three. So this is a combination of two single malts. Both are heavily peated, and it's made by the Nikka Whiskey Company. So we've got some heavily peated Yoichi, which is a distillery established in 1934 on the island of Hokkaido, all the way up in the north part of Japan. We've got some heavily peated Yoichi, which is a distillery that was come back in 1969, a couple of years just before the founder, Mr. Takatsuru, died. And that's based quite close to Sendai. Now, typically Miyagikyo is not peated at all. It's spicy, it's kind of light and fragrant. But for this one, it's been heavily peated. They've blended the two together, 10 to 12 years old, only sourced from white American oak, or American white oak, I should say. Shout out as well to Stephanie Holt. She is a brand ambassador for specialty brands who distribute these, and she helped me with those facts because I did have them written down, but I lost the notebook. So cheers, Steph, for that. But now that I've told you about it, we'll get on with trying it. So it's peated, it's going to be a bit salty, which isn't a typical Japanese style. So we'll get on with smelling it and telling you all what it's like. Now, when we talk about Japanese peated whiskey, you kind of have to take out the idea of Scottish peated whiskey because they're not the same thing at all. Scottish peated whiskey is earthy and kind of raw, and to a lot of people it smells like TCP and Germaline and all those kind of really intense dentist clean style smells. Japanese peat is much lighter, it's much more fragrant, as is the case with this one. It's sort of like fresh and chocolatey. I don't know if anyone's ever tried sort of like dark chocolate. It's got like sea salt in it. It's got a very similar kind of smell to that. And there's still some quite typical East Coast Scottish notes coming from it. There's a little bit of apple, there's a little bit of pear. Lovely vanilla and kind of like warm pastry, all that kind of thing. It's known to be one of the saltiest whiskies that Japan's ever produced. You do get a little bit of that. Not tons, but just enough to kind of make you aware that it has a slightly coastal feel about it. Anyway, let's taste it. It's 43%, so it's a bit spicier than what you would expect given the smell. And it's a nice transitional point. So all the sweet notes I mentioned at the start on the nose, you do get those. It's initially a very sweet layer across the mouth, and then the salt comes out, and then that light hint of peat comes out towards the end. And it's just enough to kind of make you think of things like Lafroig and Ardbeg. Not enough to be directly comparable, but enough to make you think about them. Let's have another go. Lovely rounded spiciness, nothing over the top. Just very approachable, very lovely. Just warming, and it's nice to have it was nice to have a style of Japanese whiskey that was slightly different from the norm, using two malts that have both been heavily peated. If you do research on Miyagikyo and Yoichi, the amount of different options they have for the amount of whiskies they can create are endless. There's so many different options they can create. And I'm kind of sad to see this discontinued. I'll be buying more and more of this to kind of keep me in stock for the next couple of years until they hopefully decide to bring it back or something similar. But you can pick this up for like about 50 quid. With it being discontinued, you should expect that price to rise a little bit. But even with that, even with the slight price rise, I still think that's like a solid 8. It's a really, really good quality, well-made, balanced product. And for people who like that West Coast Scottish style, it's nice to have it dial back a little bit with a few more interesting flavours kicking around too. Something that's distinctly Japanese in style and smell, but then you've got that kind of like ode to old Scottish whiskies or old Scottish whiskey styles too, because we know that things like Talisker and Springbank were very influential in Japanese distillers starting up their distilleries back in the early part of the 1900s. But yeah, really love the whiskey, solid 8 out of 10, buy it while you can, and yeah, I'm a big fan. So thank you all much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Cheers.